Welcome to the Ang Geno Show, where we talk about ways for you to grow your life and your business. Okay, so what do we want to hit on? I can just start asking you some questions about some of the challenges I feel I'm facing when I'm teaching that class.
Okay. Yeah. Good. Yeah. Or you mean our clients are facing or that we're facing? Like talk about like how we're.
Well, my clients. So I just gave a service class. You teach them
Oh,
skills, and they can make more money if they do the skills because there's some incentive-based pay for these people. But what always baffles me is maybe 10% of the people actually do something with it. Sometimes we'll get a bigger group, but if I get a full room, one or two people will come up to me a year later and say, "Oh my God, you doubled my income. I did what you said, it doubled my income." And in this company in particular, there's some guys that there are two like very low level guys, and they're the top. Those two are in the top of the board for the KPIs. And what's interesting is when I gave them the class a month ago, I went to this company. We did half a month ago, and the other half this last week or this week. I don't even know what day it is. Anyway, yeah, it was
right.
this week.
We've been a little busy.
I just got back last night. Wow. Anyway, those guys that are top of the board now, I recommended, hey, if you guys want to get better, like what we just did over the last couple of days does not make you an expert. You need to continue to practice this.
Mm-hmm.
And I encourage you, if you just practice 15 minutes a day, 5 days a week, that's an hour and 15 minutes a week. That's 5 hours a month. If you practice your verbiage, your pitches for 5 hours a month, would you not be better? And everybody can say, yeah. I go, can everybody find 15 minutes a day? Right. So everybody says, yeah, but so few actually do it. Well, these two kids did it. And I'm calling them kids. They're like 20 and 23 years old. Um, they said, okay, they do it on FaceTime. They actually work together and role play these things.
Well, that's powerful right there, right?
Yeah.
Because they're not doing it alone, right? So they're teaming up. Um, and that's something I did my dissertation on, which we would do when you and I do our workshops. We do this. We pair people up. When people can buddy up, they really can give each other courage, right? I think what's so cool is you're giving so many solutions that are right there, you're right there. And I think that's the cusp of, we're here to help people be their best self in business and in life, right? That's our goal for why we show up here, is to help people do that. And I think the right answers are all out there. It's, creating it so that you can do it. Right. I mean, these kids are doing it, and they're encouraging each other, and I guess they're making new habits out of it, and
Yeah.
I think people like ask me, why are habits so important? Habits are really a hot topic right now. There's a great book called Atomic Habits. There are others. Yeah. So Atomic Habits, they talk about, and people say, well, why are habits so important? The upshot to habits, and I think these two young people are really honing in on that, is habits are important because then you do it without even thinking about it. When there's good things to do and they don't quite become habits, you can forget to do them. You may not include them in what you're doing or how you're doing something. But when you ask your people, to do something 15 minutes a day, what's golden about that is you're helping them to create habits. Right. And I think that's a secret.
But so few actually do it. And that's, the key discipline. I tell them, discipline is rarely enjoyable, but it's almost always profitable.
Mm.
So, and that's, again, about my personality as a psychologist. You've given me the test. I can't even conceive why someone wouldn't do these things. If it's that simple, such a simple thing that will change. Like these kids have given themselves a 50% pay increase minimum by just practicing these things a little bit each day. And then they rally each other. They're in a friendly competition. So I looked at this room and I'm like, okay, On day one, who wants to make more money? Every hand goes up. So, okay, here's
Yeah.
some ways you can do it. And so at the end of yesterday, I said, so who's going to commit to 15 minutes a
Mm.
day? And half the room put their hands up. Like, why aren't you all putting your hands up?
Wow.
You know,
Wow.
I say these are guys service techs that drive, trucks around. There's a lot of windshield time. And I ask, okay, who's listening to music? Most of the hands go up. Who's listening to talk radio? Some more hands go up. Like, who's listening to books? Two hands go up.
Yeah, dang it. Isn't that a shame?
Yeah.
Well, and you start to realize, wow, well, what are the personality characteristics that go in? It's like, discipline can be broken down into, hard work, diligence, trying something new, openness, curiosity, grit. And I think in the journey, if we were thinking about how we can help our audience, it's about sort of unpacking those little moments where you just are saying no in your head, right? And that I say, if we were to crawl into the heads of the people that were, not raising their hands, it'd be interesting to find out, why not, right? Not just it's and because I think, I think we all have things that hold us back in life for different things, different reasons. Some of us have learned to unlock the door. Some of us at a certain age realize every door can be opened. Here we are in the, in the what I call the reap years, right? Where we're both, 50 plus, and you realize, okay, time is shorter. No fear, take every chance. And I think our goal is to unlock that for people at an earlier age, right? Some people have these, our two guys here that you're highlighting are an example of the sooner you unlock that, the better, isn't it true?
Yeah. And you're probably on to something there that, again, they are the young ones. I remember what I was like when I was young, like, whoa, I can make more money. What do you have to lose, right? These kids probably aren't married, don't have those responsibilities. And like, it's different when you come home from a long day at work and your kid runs out to attack you. Now, I
Yeah.
used to, when my kids are small, I got up extra early to do things like that, to read, to something to help make myself better. Um,
So
so of course,
people want to, I think people look at someone like you and they want to bottle up that drive, right? I think a lot of people will ask me, not I think, people will ask me, are we born with that drive or can we generate that drive? It sounds like you've had it. I think I generated it over time, right? And so I would think you could access drive a lot of different ways. I see you as supernaturally driven, and I kind of opened that up as my life kind of evolved, and I don't know, I don't know what it was, like confidence, experience, exposure to the, to my degree. I don't know, but I can see how mine got turned up just like a slow ramp up. And now I'm on fire now, right? So
right.
that's always
Yeah.
fun.
Again, I'm
Uh,
always amazed at your energy.
I
Cracks me up.
I try to cram two lifetimes into one is what I say. So sometimes I do get double booked, literally. But it is exciting. There's just so much out there. That's a curiosity I think you and I both want people to have in the world, that like what if, like, it's such an adventure to figure out what's going to happen,
Right. I don't know
even in
if
a
you could hear
sales
my
setting.
dog in the background.
We can. Your dog is onto something. So tell me, how did that end with your class? Did these two kids fire people up? Did people seem to get intimidated? Did some step up? What was your
Well, they
observation?
weren't in this class. They were in the last one. So, but in this one, we've got the performance boards for their department on the wall of the training room. And so I'm looking at them. I keep pointing.
Mm,
Look, these guys are doing it. They're, now some of the guys came up and, well, a few came up after class. Thanks. Hey, this is great. Do something. One came up and said, I didn't want to say publicly what my goals are. I like to keep them kind of private. And I'm like, I like to put them out there. Kind of, now there's an accountability factor. I told you I'm going to do this now. But he said, he goes, I believe I can double my income. Now, I know what he was making at his previous company. So when he came over, I'm like, you better be doubling your income. So
That's interesting. That's interesting.
I'll
You have a
be
history with
upset.
these folks too.
Yeah. Well, some of them I do actually. In this group, there's only a handful that it actually had worked with before. A lot of them are new because this company's growing.
So this was sales training, just to orient our listeners, right? You had done some sales training with these people.
Yeah, to say so these are technicians that go out
Mhm.
and so for a heating and air company,
Mhm.
these guys go out to a home, and one of the challenges is um first of all, they have no idea what it costs to operate that type of business. In
Mm.
fact, homeowners might think, $300 for this part. Well, it's $300 for the part, but that includes the drive time, the inventory. It just includes a lot of other stuff to support that, right? So a company has to generate a certain average ticket.
Mhm.
The challenge is at this time of the year, this is we're recording this in a non-peak season. So we go out and do preventative maintenances.
Mm.
And so if you're on a club with these companies, you pay a fee each year and it gives you perks. You get maintenances performed in your system before the peak seasons. And if there's repairs required, you get, big discounts. And if something goes wrong, then you get, a discounted diagnostic, emergency service type thing, and you get a priority service. The thing is, these technicians go into the home and they might say, oh, this part is out of spec, meaning it's
Mhm.
very likely to fail, but they're not good at getting the homeowner to repair it because in their head, well, the
I
system's still
see.
working. So
So that's
now,
kind of like it's really like helping them understand, like being more confident to let them know when something's not working or about to fail.
yeah, so what we need to do is so I'm going to assume you're the homeowner here. We're going to role play a little bit. I'm
Okay.
like, hey, Angela, systems, everything safety wise looked great. I did come across this capacitor here. It's rated for this, and here's what my meter's showing it. It's beginning to fail. I know your system's still operating, but this little part protects a more expensive motor.
Mhm.
Now, it's very common for these to fail. It's probably the number one repair we do when the heat hits. Um, I got it on my truck. I can do it now for only X, whatever it is, couple $300. Here's the thing: if they don't get that repair at that time, it gets hot and it breaks. The
Mm.
clients are now upset that, well, you were just here. It might be 3 months later. You were
Oh
just
man.
here and now it broke. So it hurts our reviews, as all these companies, that most of the reviews, bad reviews, come behind something like that.
Wow. So they have to manage that situation in a way that they get the preventative maintenance done, avoid having to quote unquote come back out when the client's machine isn't running and they're upset and it's hot.
Yeah.
But
So you have to be able to sell them this part when their system's running.
yeah. So it
And
doesn't, because running to
yeah,
fail is bad, right? That's
yeah.
downtime. That's not good.
And these technicians are thinking, well, they get the discount. I'm like, okay, you guys are missing the point. The reason we can offer a 20% discount on this service, on these repairs, and we offer this discounted diagnostic and priority service is because these should be customers we're not serving during the peak of the season.
Mm,
If you could do those repairs in the slow season, we can get new customers during the busy season.
mm.
So
Right. I
if you're not
understand.
getting the customers to do these repairs, it makes
Outside of
no
the busy season.
sense to offer that program. It costs you money. It's a negative for the business because
Because it's
instead of doing
taking
new
up
customers
valuable
at full
time.
price, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. So
that's
anyway,
so
to
interesting.
wrap it up, that's the mindset. These technicians go out there and they're not good about saying, "Hey, this part's failing." Getting you to understand, yes, it is in my best interest to replace that now. So that's what my class was about. Basically, we got to get these repairs.
Well, I wonder if, we talk about this young generation having grown up being stuck on their phones a lot. And, it's interesting. You got these two out of 50 kids, service writer kids that are in their 20s that actually have the social skills. Cause, based on what you're describing, it does take a certain comfort level with a person to explain something, figure out what they're telling you and how to respond back. I mean, a simple conversation entails a lot of decisions to be made that when you've been social in your life become very easy. But I think for people that's kids that spent their life in front of a screen, Gino, I think those kids just don't know how to have conversations and they don't know how to read people to respond in the, okay, if they said that, what do I say next? I mean, a conversation is like a game of checkers or chess. You got to figure out, like, okay, they said that. What do they mean? What should I say that can help the conversation? And, it wouldn't surprise me if we probably looked at communication effectiveness of 18 to 24-year-olds that these two kids are gonna clean up. I mean, we talk about the kids that can engage people, and, I'll tell you, people are talking about you're gonna lose jobs to AI. The people that know how to relate to people are the people that are gonna have the jobs left because the right answer can always be had, and it's gonna get easier and easier to get the right answer. But being able to creating change is about selling. You don't have to be a salesman to sell, but you have to get people to understand what they need to do. And that people skill, I don't think AI can ever complete that skill. And it's interesting that the people that are going to clean up, and these two kids are doing it right now already. I say it's a real prophecy for it. You know what? It's time to put the phone down. It's really time to put that phone down and engage.
Yeah. Yeah. The interesting thing, that room, there's a lot of guys in their 40s, that are,
Oh, really?
yeah,
So
and
it wasn't
they're,
all young people.
no, it's not all young people. There's a couple guys in their 50s doing this. So, um, what's interesting too, it's kind of neat, some people are late to this career too,
Mhm.
which, and there's something that always comes with age. There's wisdom, that we didn't value it when we were young. We didn't understand how valuable wisdom is. We
Yeah.
just think, oh, what does my dad know?
Yeah, well, and it's interesting, Julia, Dreyfus from Seinfeld has a really wonderful new podcast, and it's, where she interviews women who are I don't think she's interviewed anyone under 70 yet, and, Jane Fonda said, "We think that youth is really easy." She says, "Being in your 20s is actually really hard." She was looking back and realizing, there's difficulties at every age, but we really idealize youth and how, we look back on it and go, "Oh, everything's so easy. You have health and looks and this and that and opportunity." But man, she said, when you really evaluate what's happening to all of us in our 20s, there is so much coming at us in our 20s. You just don't know. It's like you're walking around in the dark, right? I mean, by the time you turn 30, a little more lights shed on the situation of life. And I think the lights are all on by the time you hit 50, 60, 70, and 80. And I tell you, these very seasoned and wise, famous people that Julia's interviewing are really shedding some of this light, like you say. Wisdom is underrated by the young, and, I think youth can be a little overrated sometimes as we get older. I what is it they say? I wouldn't go back wouldn't take $1,000,000 to go back. Wouldn't take a nickel to do it again or something like that. I can't
Yeah.
remember.
Well, there's a
But,
study that I forget the exact parameters of it, but they asked a lot of people, what age would you go back to it, but
mm,
you lose all the knowledge you've gained since that age? And overwhelming majority are like, I'm not going back to any age. And,
yeah,
which is an important thing, I think, for the young to understand that is that as much as older people, like I wake up sore every day, I go to bed sore every day, right? Um, we yearn for our youth, but we're unwilling to pay the price of our wisdom to gain
yeah,
it.
yeah.
And that
Yeah,
says a lot.
it does. It does. I know this is not a health podcast, but I will tell you, I have started following my son's athletic nutritionist's diet because we only wanted to cook one food in the house and not have to cook all these meals. And I will tell you, I got a little scoliosis here. I've gotten the bends from scuba diving, so I've got a shoulder that starts to ache. One part of the diet was giving up gluten. And I will tell you, I feel more energized at my undefined woman of a certain age than I did 20 years ago, right? And I will tell you that when my son goes out of town and he'll be off to a race and we'll be like, "Oh, let's make pizza or let's make pasta." Like I wake up the next day, oh, there it is, and there's the scoliosis. And so I got to say it becomes less and less appealing when the brain gets that immediate connection. So I got to say, I'm not here to convince everybody to go gluten free for 30 days, but for what it did for my body's burden, journey of injury burden, boy, I tell you, I feel better than I did 20 years ago. I cannot believe how good my body feels. So
It's
I don't
interesting.
know.
I actually tried a doctor friend of mine. I was having joint issues, and she said, "Hey, try gluten free. It works for some people. That could be it." So I went gluten free for a month, and it didn't affect the pain
Mm,
issue. But what I did find, besides it's very difficult to eat when you travel a lot,
hmm.
because it's like on the plane you don't get choices. But anyway, I lost a lot of weight.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
interesting. I'm like, wow, I lost like 6 pounds that month. And it's not that I didn't know I had 6 pounds to lose,
Exactly. Yeah, no, exactly. I agree. Things like my clothes just fit differently. And then I'd go see a friend I hadn't seen in a while. They're like, wow. I'm like, what'd you do? I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. I'm doing something different. Yeah, like, it is hard on planes. One place it's so interesting when I'm in Europe, I can eat carbs and I don't get pain. I don't know what it is about European wheat, but
Oh, you're
different.
on. So I'd ask that question. Boy, we are turning into a health
Fine.
podcast
Well,
here.
this is how you get to be better, right? From the
Yeah.
inside out, right?
It's so interesting you say that because I remember, and without going too much detail, so back in the 90s, I ate a lot of bread.
Mm,
I was always gassy. And I never related it to bread until I went to Europe, where I continued to eat a lot of bread, but I wasn't gassy. And I thought,
mm,
what was it? The bread.
yeah.
And then I saw there's this YouTube channel. I'm trying to think. It's a science or no, it's this guy, Johnny Harris. He does actually a lot of things on borders and anyways, interesting journalist. He did a thing on bread in Europe and the wheat. And it was there's an actual relation. I
Oh,
was like,
that's
oh my
so
gosh,
interesting.
that's what it is. So
Well,
you're
and I
right.
think we use yeah, and I think it is. I think we probably use lower quality wheat, which requires additional kinds of flour and because bread is supposed to have a certain level of protein by I think it's by law or by like how the texture that it actually works. But I think we have a lot of dough conditioners that we add instead of we add bromide to bread here, which is a bit of a hormone interrupter for the thyroid, and that impacts other things in the body as well. And so it might be that they're just making bread the good old fashioned way in Europe with maybe a higher quality of flour. I think they really honor their bread there, and they're probably less keen about making it shelf stable for like 5 weeks. you know
Right.
I think that has a lot to do with it. But yeah, so many people talk about it. It'd be fun to spend a whole show on like what are our secret health tips. Like, you pick
Yeah.
up these things, we all pick up things. And it'd be fun to have a session where our listeners contribute some questions too, and we can see what their questions are or what their tips are too. But
Yeah.
there's some great information out there that people can try on for size and see how it works.
Yeah. So back to what our podcast is actually about. And not that that doesn't help in the matter, but the mindset, right?
Mm,
We want to grow. We want to be better. And one thing that I thought heavily about because I brought it up in the class I was given yesterday. And I was thinking about the discussion you and I had. At this point in our lives, it's less about the money. It's more
Mm.
about who we can help. And since we had that talk, I'm really thinking heavily of like, okay, how do I measure that? Because I have, as you know, I got this tight relationship with some clients, core clients, and I'm not necessarily always looking for more clients. I just, if I really like you, I'll work with you. It's a fortunate place to be.
Mhm.
However, I'm like, how can we grow more classes like we've done to help impact more people? And hopefully
Yeah.
this venue right here, our podcast can do that. But in helping people, back to my class and what I was kind of starting with when we first started this was we can teach everything, and people will listen, but they don't take the step.
Mm.
And that's still the magic, the magic beans, right? It's like, okay, here's all the
Yeah.
info. But if you don't do something with it, you got the beans to make the great soup, but you got to put them in the damn pot,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, and isn't it interesting? I mean, this is along the lines. I remember a while back when we were having a great conversation about I think you have an online course that people can sign up for, and what a small percentage of people ever really get to the whole course.
Yeah.
And there's gold in that course, right? And that person, and I think we talk about success being just showing up. Like if people show up to every class in that online course, they're going to be a winner, right? Because they got all of it, and then the one that activates it is the one that flies the highest. I think a lot of people are just don't know how to show up, and it
Yeah.
is hard. That's if I wish I could wave a magic wand, that's one thing I would give people, that fire to show up more, right?
Yeah. And something you and I've talked about, like you said, you haven't done a book yet. And I was like, schedule it. I there's another book I want to write. And I'm like, okay, I need to schedule it, you know. And by the way, there's a book I want you and I to write too. It came up in this class. I was like, you know what? And someone that did our workshop, Lee, said, you and Angela, you know.
Oh,
So
that's so cool. Yeah, well, we should schedule it. And yeah, I do. What is it? I sometimes let the urgent crowd out the important. And I think that happens to a lot of us. I know in my head, I've kind of written 5 books in my head, but they live there and I just got to get them out. There's a certain personality of just someone that's really good at bringing closure to things, that are indefinite. Um, it's hard to write a book in a sense that I keep wanting to go back and change things. I've written a book on culture change. I've got a book written. I just haven't published it. So I've got a book on culture change, and it really breaks down the mindset around helping leaders and teams kind of figure out, like, why is culture important and how do we approach it, right? But I keep going back. I keep changing this, changing that. I think, where's the point, Gino, where you're like, this is good enough and it's done and it's going out the door. Maybe you
it's a
can help
sign of a
me and
great
our listeners.
artist. Yeah, a great artist knows when to stop.
Well, I ain't a great artist then. So how do you know
so,
when to stop?
so
It's
there's
interesting.
always that yeah. So give yourself a timeline and then you have to stop. It's like, okay, I
Yeah.
want to have this chapter done by this date, you know, just the final nuts and bolts. Like I think I shared with you the process when I wrote my book. I wanted a quick, easy read
Mm,
book that got to the point because I read all these business books and in 300 pages you get 4 or 5 decent points, that can be summarized in a paragraph or two each. So there's a lot of fluff in the books, and
yeah.
that always annoys
Yeah.
me. So I wanted a book that was just boom, boom, boom. So I figured, okay, a 30,000 word book. I wrote 70,000 words. It
Wow.
took longer to take out, to come down to narrow it down. And I ended up at about 35,000 words. And that took discipline. Okay, I'm going to, on these 3 days a week, from this time
Wow.
to this time, it was just an hour I gave myself. Sometimes I'd work that hour and get nothing done. Other
Mm.
times I'd work 3 hours and get a whole bunch
But
done.
you'd make that date and you'd hold it with yourself. That is
Yes.
inspiring. That is inspiring. Okay, you fired me up. I'm going to report back in our next podcast how well I want to model here for people doing something. I get a lot done, but what I have not done is finished that book and gotten it out. I'm almost more apt to want to start a new one than go back to that other beast of a book. But let me be a student here and try something on for size. So I promise I'm putting it out there to everybody listening, whoever you might be. I'm going to get myself out there and make some time to sit down and write. And Gino, I'll report back in. You'll be my guide. You can coach me.
I'm your
And
accountability partner.
thank you. Yeah, right. Be my accountability partner. And then we should set aside time to write that book that we want to write too.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be really fun. Yeah, there's our workshops have been really fun. I think there's a lot of magic for people to sit down and see what's possible, right? And
Yeah.
the ones that are ready to get fired up and aren't sure what the next step is.
Yeah. Those have been, well, they've been a blast for me, Ange. I had a suspicion of what they would be like. And again, that last one, because we fine-tuned it a little bit too, I'd mentioned, hey, we're losing them at this part. You totally
Yeah.
brought it after that.
Yeah.
That's
That was the
they're
power of feedback, right? It was
yeah.
so cool. Yeah. So for our listeners to orient to what we're talking about, there's a model I present in one of our workshops on one day. And it's one of those models that's super helpful. It's a how to manage people model. And when we were up in our Seattle workshop, you gave me, I don't know if you told me I think you told me in Seattle. Yeah. After we talked about how did it go, after that workshop, after that day, you said, "Hey, Ange, I noticed their eyes glazed over while you were explaining it." And it clicked for me because you helped me orient to that moment. You didn't wait a long time to give me the feedback. So it was really fresh in my head. I think that's a real neat model for why feedback in the moment matters, because you and I could both find that moment and get on the same page really quickly. So yeah, so what I did was I went back into my head and I broke it down. I added another slide, and thank you for the feedback. But yeah, I think we did a great job, and your feedback was, I think they were much more engaged. In fact, for some people, it was their favorite part of the workshop.
Exactly. It was. In
We
fact, I
turned it
just
around.
heard from where I was last week. I saw them on the desk. Yes, we're having a meeting about this tomorrow. So
Oh, that
yeah.
makes my heart feel so good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's another part of what makes development and training meaningful is when it gets back into the workplace and it doesn't just
Yeah.
end at the seminar workshop door.
Right. Yeah, everybody
Yeah,
likes
no, that's good.
workshops because they're away and it's something different. But
You got to
out of
take it home. That's a
yeah.
sustainability piece, isn't it?
Yeah. Where are we at now, Ange? What's next? Are we
So
wrapping up on time?
it's been great working with you again today, Gino, catching up, sharing some of our ideas with our audience.
It's always fun, Ange. I'm getting psyched about this. It's going to be fun. I want to continue to bring it. And I'm looking
More.
forward to your book.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to giving you an update. Until next time.
All right. Bye.